Welcome to my next Lost Season 3 episode review video. Before I get into that though, pretty important, if you aren't caught up to the point where I am, you're rewatching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, if you find you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already seen Lost 3 other times. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I want to rewatch the show to let it resonate, but I'm not the only one that's currently watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffee Man, who you see in various comment sections of my videos for Breaking Bad, Dexter Original Sin, Lucifer, Dexter, the original run of Dexter, and soon to be Dexter Resurrection, is actually watching Lost for the first time. So join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show. With all that said, this will be Lost, Season 3, Episode 16. The title of this episode is called One of Us. And this will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. We start with Kate, Sayid, Jack, and Juliet making their way back. They collect firewood, and Kate wonders why Jack hasn't said anything about what happened in the week he spent with the others. Jack explains that he cut a deal with them by helping Ben. He says, "I did what they told me and didn't ask any questions." Kate is skeptical that it was that simple, but leaves it alone. Sayid questions Juliet about who she is, but she refuses to tell him anything. Flashback time as Juliet and her sister Rachel pull up to the gate of the Bioscience Center. Juliet turns off the radio, and then Ethan and Richard Alpert come out to welcome Juliet and inform her that for security reasons, her sister cannot accompany her past the entrance gates. Juliet says goodbye to Rachel, thinking that she will be back in 6 months. Juliet has a moment of doubt, but Rachel reassures her, pointing out that her cancer is completely gone and that she's finally going to have a baby. And then Juliet promises to return before the birth. Back to the island, Juliet says Sayid will kill her if she tells him everything he wants to know, but he bluntly implies that he will kill her if she doesn't. Jack returns and tells Sayid to leave Juliet alone and that she is under his protection. Charlie hears baby Aaron crying, but Claire is sleeping and unaware, so Charlie comforts Aaron and wakes Claire up. She complains that she isn't feeling well, so Charlie takes the baby and leaves Claire to sleep. Sayid violently plows his way through the jungle, annoyed at Jack siding with the enemy, while Jack and Juliet struggle to keep up. Neither Kate nor Sayid trust Jack's opinion of Juliet, and Juliet expresses concern over how the other survivors will react to her presence. Jack tries to joke about the situation, but Juliet admits to being nervous. Back to our flashback, Ethan and Richard ask Juliet if they can record her vitals. Richard empties a packet of powder into a glass of orange juice quite openly, and then when Juliet asks what it is, he calmly states it's a tranquilizer. Ethan says it's for the best because the journey ahead will be pretty intense. And seeing that Juliet is balking, Richard reminds her that if she works for them, she can accomplish great things to help many people, and that she has already accepted a lot of unusual requests. Juliet gulps the oranges down in one go, and Ethan says she shouldn't have drank that so fast. Juliet slumps unconscious almost right away. She awakes in a sub. Her hands, wrists, and feet are restrained tightly on a bunk. Juliet tries to speak but has lost her voice, and Ethan says that she'll be just a little hoarse for a few hours. He apologizes for strapping her in, as the last leg is always a little bumpy, and tells her that they've arrived. She makes her way up through the exit hatch on her own, still feeling the effects of the tranquilizer. As she steps out, she finds herself in a tropical climate with an imposing jungle and cliffs in front of her, and then on the dock, Benjamin Linus introduces himself and welcomes her to the island. Claire wakes and looks sick. Sawyer goes to get some aspirin. The camp notices Jack returning to the beach with Kate and Sayid. Everyone shares welcoming hugs with the returning castmates. Sawyer is relieved to see that Kate is safe, and they share a loving hug. Sawyer notices Juliet and the entire camp turn a piercing stare at the unwelcome visitor, demanding to know why she is there. Soon after her arrival, Hurley joins Juliet on the beach and asks her who she is and why she wasn't on the dock when they captured Kate, Sawyer, Jack, and himself. Juliet says that she had the day off and then bluntly remarks that she knows he's only speaking to her because he was told to keep an eye on her. Hurley proceeds to tell the story of the last other who was with them Ethan and points to the spot where they buried him. Back to our flashback, someone dies on the table while being operated on by Ethan with Juliet and Goodwin's assistance. Goodwin attempts to comfort the distraught Juliet, telling her to leave and that he will speak to Ben. Ben approaches Juliet outside. Ben says that the woman knew the risks she was taking when she became pregnant. Juliet declares her theory that the problems occur when the baby is conceived and that she can only be certain of her theory if she's allowed to take one of the women back to Miami. Ben refuses, so Juliet says there's nothing more she can do there. Juliet apologizes and acknowledges that Ben put a lot of faith in her, but it's time for her to go home to her sister, who is only 3 months away from having her baby. Ben informs Juliet that her sister won't be giving birth in 3 months because Rachel's cancer has returned, and that she will be dead before Juliet can return. He takes a folder of medical papers from his bag, documenting the cancer, and shows them to Juliet. Juliet, of course, is angry and distressed that Ben didn't inform her sooner. She asks where he got the information from, and Ben says he got it from Mikhail. Ben offers a deal to Juliet. If she stays on the island and continues her research, he will make sure that Rachel's cancer is cured. He points out that none of the women or none of the people on the island have ever had cancer. Juliet retorts, "That's here," and Ben won't let Juliet bring Rachel to the island. He says that Jacob will take care of it personally unless Juliet even doesn't have faith in him. Back on the island, Jack attempts to convince members of the camp that Juliet was left behind as well and that she can be trusted. He also informs everyone that while Juliet is now one of us, John Locke has joined the others as one of them, highlighting the significance of the situation. Claire then stumbles into the camp meeting and Charlie catches her as she begins to cough up blood. Jack helps Charlie carry Claire to her tent and Juliet calls to Kate. She explains that she needs to talk to Jack immediately, saying, "I know what's wrong with Claire because I did it to her." Juliet reveals to Jack and Kate that pregnant women always die on the island because the woman's body begins to attack the fetus as if it was a foreign object. She explains that Ethan was placed in their camp to take blood samples from Claire and administer Juliet's medication, which is why Claire was the first woman to give birth on the island without dying. She explains that the plan fell apart when Hurley realized that Ethan was not one of the survivors, so Ethan kidnapped Claire on his own initiative without consulting with the others, and that kidnapping Claire was never the plan, and continued to administer the drugs. She explains that Claire is suffering withdrawal symptoms from the medication, and that she must administer them or Claire will die. She gains Jack's approval to run to a hiding place where Ethan used to store the medication. Back to our flashback, 2 days before the crash of Oceanic Flight 815, Juliet eats ice cream while in bed with Goodwin and observes that the next day will mark her 3rd year on the island. There is a knock at the door and then Juliet tells Goodwin to wait in the bedroom. Carl has developed some x-rays for her and she looks at them with concern, then marches over to Ben's house. Ben welcomes her and comments that the book she recommended, Carrie, is depressing. She shows the x-rays to Ben, explaining that what she assumed was a small fracture or herniated disc is actually a large tumor surrounding his L4 vertebrae. Ben is taken aback and Juliet asks why he is surprised. He says because he has cancer, and she points out that she said it was a tumor, not cancer. She asks him why he is scared, but he denies that he is as he goes to the kitchen for a glass of water. Juliet angrily challenges Ben's claim that nobody on the island has ever had cancer and calls him a liar. How could he promise to cure Rachel and claim no one has ever had cancer on the island? What is she to make of her promise to cure Rachel? She suspects that Ben might never have saved Rachel's life after all. She demands to see her sister, furiously knocking the glass out of Ben's hand. He refuses, and Juliet screams that he has lied to her all this time. Ben insists that Rachel is fine, and Juliet bursts into tears, begging him to let her go home. He coldly replies, "No," and leaves, Juliet sobbing at the kitchen counter. Back to the island, Juliet reaches a tree with a marking and finds a black case in the weeds. As she unlatches the case, Sawyer and Saeed appear. Sawyer opens the case and sees medical supplies. They tell her she will not be returning to camp until they get some answers about who she is. She counterattacks, saying about how strange it is that Saeed and Sawyer have begun to cast moral judgment given the crimes that they have committed in the past. She mentions an incident in Basra involving Saeed and reveals that she knows about Sawyer killing a man in cold blood the night before his flight. She bluntly informs the two men that she is taking the case back to the camp now because if she doesn't, Claire will die. And the last thing that either of them needs is more blood on your hands. Juliet leaves with the case. Back to our flashback, we see Juliet crying before the book club that we've already seen before, and then Ben asks to speak to Juliet. So Ben and Juliet walk to the Flame, where there's a stack of TV monitors that show Oceanic Flight 815 leaving, and news reports from numerous networks reporting that the flight is missing somewhere in the Pacific. Mikhail gives Ben the basic facts about Oceanic Flight 815, such as that there were 324 people on board. Ben asks for detailed files on every passenger, and Mikhail says he's already on it. Ben asks Mikhail to uplink to Richard in the park. Juliet looks on, clutching the Stephen King novel, Carrie. Ben puts on a pair of headphones, saying that he was hurt when she called him a liar. The screen shows an image of a Miami Journal. Ben, seemingly communicating with the person who is operating the camera, asks Richard to zoom in on the paper to show the date as September 22nd, 2004, to show that the feed is live. The camera moves to show Rachel in the park playing with a toddler. Ben says that a little over 2 years ago, to everyone's surprise, Rachel's cancer went into complete remission. Juliet is overjoyed and grips the screen while crying. Ben says that shortly after Rachel recovered, she gave birth to a boy whom she named Julian. Ben thanks Richard and tells him to get back here as soon as he can because they may have some visitors. He closes the connection with Richard and Mikhail shuts down the video feed. Juliet frantically begs for a few more moments. Ben points out again that this proves he wasn't lying. She asks again to return home, but Ben tells her she cannot leave because that's not our agreement. She must stay on the island until her work is finished. Juliet pleads that it is impossible because the mothers keep dying. Ben says that they will find more mothers and suggests there might be even one on the plane. Back to the island, Juliet arrives at the beach with a medication. Charlie is reluctant to let her near Claire, but Jack implores Charlie to trust his judgment. Juliet states that the medication should go into effect within a few hours, and Jack warns Juliet that he will be unable to protect her from the rest of the camp if Claire doesn't recover, that she will be on her own. Juliet responds that she is already on her own and administers the medication. Charlie has nodded off next to Claire's bed with one finger in baby Aaron's grasp and the other holding Claire's hand. Claire wakes up and asks what happened. Charlie is relieved to see she is better, and they smile lovingly at each other. On the beach, Jack brings Juliet a tarp, blankets, a few airline pillows, and other things, saying that the camp will allow her to use it as a temporary shelter until she can set up her own. He tells her that eventually they will want answers. She asks why Jack hasn't also pressed her for answers, and he replies that when she was next to him when the submarine was blown up, and he saw in her eyes that the one thing she wanted more than anything was to get off the island. That makes you one of us. As Juliet ties a knot on her shelter, she recalls her conversation with Ben about their plan. She watches the survivors of Flight 815 as they laugh and chat, though she smiles to Jack. And at the same time, we go back to our flashback. Juliet and a wheelchair-bound Ben sit at his kitchen table at night. He tells her to go over the plan again. The plan. Juliet recites it. She will take Kate into the jungle, handcuffed together, pretending that she had been left behind as well. If she's discovered, she'll admit it, but claim she did it simply to gain Kate's trust. After that, they'll go back to the beach camp, though Juliet comments that there may be a trust issue surrounding her from Kate's group. Ben replies that they have already set off the implant in Claire, making her symptomatic in the next 48 hours. By the time that Juliet arrives, there will be a perfect opportunity to gain trust by her ability to save Claire. Ben has already set Price to put the serum at Ethan's old drop-off point for her to use. They exchange stares as Ben gives Juliet a gas mask and leaves, stating, "I'll see you in a week." And then back to the island, Juliet's private expression is reflective as she turns away, tightening the reef knot in a figure eight, ending this episode of Lost. So pretty good episode. I know this was very detailed. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. My character of the episode is going to be Juliet, and then I'll also give Ben the secondary character of the episode. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please don't forget to Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section and let me know and the legendary Crazy Coffee Man know about what your thoughts are. What would you score the episode, and who would you choose as your character of the episode, and then your secondary character of the episode. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel, join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.